Good afternoon and welcome to Phillips Mill Community Association's Art Talk. I'm your host, Laura Womack, and with me is our executive producer, Jen McHugh.
Hi, everyone.
Today we're talking with the Patrons Award winners of the 92nd Phillips Mill Juried Art Show. These are the top prizes in painting, sculpture, and drawing. Our painting winner is Ann Bowman. Ann is a member of the art committee by coincidence. She's a retired art teacher who started focusing on her own artwork in 2003. She's an extraordinary realist painter who chooses interesting subjects. She has a bachelor's degree from the Pennsylvania State University in art education, a master's in humanistic studies from Marywood College, and a master's in art education from Temple University's Tyler School of Art. Leslie Schlegel is the drawing winner. She's also a detail-oriented artist. She's been documenting local vernacular architecture and using it to inspire her artwork. Leslie has a BFA from the University of Arts in Philadelphia and a Master's of Science from Lehigh University. She's been a commercial artist as well as an adjunct teacher at area colleges and universities. And Tricia Zimic won the Sculpture Award. Her sculpture in this year's show is part of a series called Sins and Virtues. We'll explore this intriguing body of work featuring baboons. Tricia graduated from Parsons School of Design with further studies at the New Jersey Center of Visual Arts and the Arts Students League in New York City. Welcome Ann Bowman, Leslie Schlegel, and Tricia Zimic to Art Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone in the audience for joining us this Sunday. As usual, we'll take your questions as we go along, type them into the Q&A, and Jen will post the most relevant information in the chat. And what we're going to do today is we're going to spend a little bit of time with each of our artists first, one by one, and then we'll put them all together for a joint discussion. So that's our format today. We're going to start with Ann Bowman. Ann, you were an art teacher for 30 years, if I have that correct, and now you're focused full-time on your own work. I think we all know what it's like to sort of long to get to your own passion while you have other obligations. It must be very satisfying to be focusing on your own work.
It is, but I felt that teaching was my work too for all those years. And in the process, I think I learned to get to the place that I am now as part of teaching other people how to figure it out. So I was really a teacher, not by default, but that was my choice.
Well, that's wonderful. All right, well, let's see what you've been up to. Let's take a look at this year's work, which is an extraordinary piece, a wonderful piece, which is deceptively simple. Here it is with your portrait. And Jen, if we have the picture, if we can see the picture of just the artwork full so we can talk about it. I mean, this picture, Ann, you can see the realism with the extraordinary detail of the way the seams on the stripes of this flag. They show the puckering of the seams. I think we've all seen that with the good quality sewn flag. And that's the dominant subject here. And yet, if you look, when you start to studying it, there behind the flag, there's a lot that's going on. You've got a couple of different groups of people, sort of suggests a beach party, beach grill, Ocean City too. So there you are on the 4th of July, but we're not really seeing the people and it really draws you in. Tell us about it, Ann.
I was actually on my way to breakfast. When I was in graduate school at Tyler, I took a lot of photo classes. And one of our assignments was to take a picture every 20 minutes for 3 days and go through 3 rolls of film. So wherever I go, I'm always looking to see something that says something that's a picture. And I've been to this place a number of times, and it was just this morning as we were going to the grill to get breakfast that I took that picture. In fact, I did another version of this painting it's different. It has a flag in it, but it's not the same image.
So is there one's tempted to read a lot of meaning into the fact of this flag that's heavily in the foreground, and your composition on it is interesting too, because you've got all these diagonal lines.
Yes,
And
I'm
yet-
very into composition. Yes, that's one of my things. That's one of the things I used to teach all the time. So it's something, and in photography, you're always looking to see how you can compose a space. We weren't allowed to ever crop anything. You had to use the full frame. So you had to learn how to see pictures as wholes, which was very helpful. And after I took this picture and I started to realize that there are so many ways you can interpret what its meaning is. The groups of people are divided, very much like the country is right now. But it's something that is part of all of our lives, that flag. It's a monumental icon of this country. So it seemed like, not even sure where I took that picture, but when I look back on it, I realized that it had the compositional lines and the diagonals and the cutting people off at their feet on one side and seeing only parts of the heads on the other seemed to work towards making the picture have possible different meanings to different people.
I think absolutely that's right on. It's fascinating. It really draws you in. Let's take a look at the next picture, which I think also is an extraordinary study in texture. This is just amazing. And I think when we first talked, Marianne, I questioned your veracity, and I apologize for that because it's just amazing.
It's right back here. It's behind me. Yes. Again, it was something they weren't arranged that way. Nobody made them look that way. They just were. And I walked by them and I thought, that's a great picture. So I took about 20 pictures of it and finally ended up with one.
So again, I think it's interesting for its texture. I mean, as a textile lover myself, I'm fascinated that you were able to capture in paint the twill weave structure of those fabrics and, the effect that washing has on them. You can really see the texture. And I think we've all encountered these textiles in our daily life. So we know that object really very well. And that texture contrasts so beautifully with the smoothness of the tap and the porcelain sink, I'm assuming it is, or an enamel sink. I mean, and then you have these, and all of that is in very sharp focus, and then these soft shadows in the background.
It just seemed like something that I wanted to paint a picture of. And it was very time consuming. Those little textures that you talk about were torture, but, and it took a long time to actually build up the surface to get that to look right. I had to look at a number of different ways to figure out how can I make that look the way it should look.
So do you do a study for that, Marianne, to be able to, see what kind of effect you're going to have to get? Because it's a very different quality to the paint to have those textures so contrasting.
I don't necessarily do a study, but I might work on a detail from part of it, which I guess that you would call that a study, where I would try out approaches to making the paint work. Try it out somewhere else first before I really mess it up on top of the picture.
Right. And I just love its quotidian nature. It's, something you encounter every day and is this little detail of our lives that we don't necessarily think about. You've really brought it into sharp focus, literally.
Well, that's one of the things that I like to do, is to try to find an image that's something that people walk by without ever noticing. That's remarkable. And it's sort of like saying, wait a minute, take a look at this. And it sort of freezes it at that moment when you don't even know it's there.
Right. That's lovely. Breathtaking, really and truly. Jen, what is our next painting from Marianne?
It is Brass Duet.
Brass Duet. Okay, now, so here we have photorealism, but such a different effect, Marianne, with the light. And you're really bringing out the material qualities of that brass. Yeah,
that was fun. That was like just fun. I like to paint shiny things, shiny metal, glass. It's just something I've always been attracted to.
Another artist said to me the other day that painting is all about light, and I guess that's why metal might be so appealing to you, that it's just
Mhm.
it really is the complexity of light and how it's
Yeah.
reflected in these shiny objects.
The reflection and how it varies from place to place. It does.
All right. Okay, good. Now Jen is telling me that there's a question about the medium. I don't see anything in the Q&A. So if you're attending and you want to ask a question, it'd be great if you put it in the Q&A, because otherwise it gets a little bit lost. But Jen, you found the question, so let's help me out with that, please.
Chris wanted to know, and this was back to your first one, but I think it might apply to most of them. What your medium, oil? Is it oil?
Oil. Yes, oil.
Okay.
I started with watercolor and gouache, and then I moved to acrylic, and then I found at one point that I couldn't blend the acrylic. I know there's ways you can do it, but I couldn't figure it out. And so I thought, oh, I'll try oil, and it was like magic. You can work with it for a long time to get it to do what you want it to. Yeah, so that's what they're all oil, except the pencil drawing. That I don't know. I think you have a slide of that too. And actually, when I first started working after I retired, I was doing a lot of drawing, and painting gradually kind of filtered into that.
Jen, do we have that drawing? I'm not sure that we have that one up. But Miriam, if we don't, maybe you can show us real quickly on your Zoom there.
We don't have, unfortunately, a copy of the image, but this is one that everyone should see.
Can you see it?
Hold on, let me stop sharing our screen and then, there we
Okay.
go.
Marianne, if you talk for a minute, that will help us go back to it.
Okay. This was actually in the Phillips mill shop. It was a portfolio piece at one point. It wasn't framed. And I have a neighbor who lived at the end of the block who bought it, not knowing it was mine. And she had it framed, and then she passed away about 3 years ago, and her sister returned it to me, so now I have it back. But it was originally part of, it was a portfolio piece in the show.
That's marvelous. And it shows how you can get that gleaming metal even with black and white pencil drawing, graphite drawing, I'm assuming.
It's just value, change in lights and darks.
Right.
That's what
There's
makes
our
it.
art teacher there.
Oh God, yeah, you can't get me away from that. That's a major part of it was. And I taught myself a great deal in the process, because back then art schools were not really doing any instruction in terms of structure or composition or drawing or color mixing. So when I started teaching, I needed to do a lot of research in order to teach it to somebody else. And in the process, I learned a great deal myself.
Right.
And finally, I had time to actually do something. In graduate school, I took mostly photography, and I did a lot of photography. So I really hadn't done any painting in graduate school.
That's terrific. Now we have more to show from you, Miriam. I want to quickly skip ahead, Jen, towards the end, because I want to get specifically to last year. You had the Made in America, was it? Is that the name of it, Marianne, for the old car?
Yes.
There's sort of a series of
Yes.
3 there very quickly.
Yes.
I'd like to just show.
Yeah,
I think
I
you
went
have,
to
yeah, please go ahead.
I went to the Doylestown, it was a car show. And so I have a number of paintings of cars because they just seem significant to me. So that's where that came from.
Right.
It's
And-
somebody's car, but I don't know who.
Well, it's a great perspective, and obviously, again, the photorealism. And Jen, can we go back? There was, I'm looking at my notes here. We had Fading Dreams, and you've got some Americana themes, Marianne. And you told me once before that for you, art is an intellectual endeavor, at least as much as emotional. And I thought that was
Yes.
that was interesting.
Yes, it is for me. It's,
So, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you can take meaning from them, but it's about composition and how something balances and how your eyes attracted to something. So all of that plays into whatever I do. Even though there's a certain meaning, but it's not the intent to just start with meaning. It's the intent to start with something else, with the image itself. That's where I start from. And then I kind of filter out and find something that has some significance, like the Packard that's made in America. My father always had Packards when I was growing up, and I just loved that there were flags there that said something. It was a statement to me.
Right.
So I don't know if that's some understanding, but.
All right, very good. And sometime I'd love to explore with you more. I was hoping we had a little more time to talk about this Americana theme, because you've got more of that in some of your other paintings.
I do. Yep.
Yep. So we'll just have to have more conversations with you, Marianne. And I know in the Q&A, there is let's see, Jen, we had an old student of Marianne.
Oh, geez.
Yes, and I don't want to butcher her name, but Deborah Pinciotti, hopefully. Pinciotti.
Yes.
Yeah, she wants to, she said hello and wants to get in touch.
Nice.
So
yes.
That's great.
I'm connected to a lot of my former students, which is wonderful. It's really important to me.
That's marvelous, Marianne. Thanks so much. We'll be back with you shortly.
Okay.
Okay, next up is Leslie. She is our drawing winner.
Hello.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's go right to Leslie's work in this year's show. Jen, another very detailed piece, Stuck in the Past. Tell us the story behind this, Leslie.
Well, actually, I like you can see in my bio that I've lived in Bucks County and in the area like my whole life. And right now I live about a half mile down the road from this scene. It doesn't, like, if you were looking at this from the road, you wouldn't see the covered bridge or anything, but there is a covered bridge right around the corner. So, you know, I've rearranged what's there, but my feeling about this picture is I'm also a vintage collector of things from the area, and I hate to see, like, when I walk my dogs up past this barn. There's the barn, you go through the covered bridge, and I saw this car stuck in the mud there. And what struck me was, you know, and I'm sure everyone in the area feels the same way. Like, you see the beautiful barns, they're all falling apart. You know, they're not going to be there. They're not going to be there forever. And I saw this, I took photos of it, brought it back to my studio. And, you know, I was going to do you know, color, some kind of, maybe a painting or a color pencil or something, but I started sketching it, and what happens to me a lot is I start the sketch, and then I really like it in black and white, and I say, well, gee, I want to finish this in black and white, because I like the way it looks, like the contrast and all that happening. So I was, you know, trying to save this picture in time, because actually it's changed already. When I walk up there now, they've already put more junk cars in front of this, and, you know, it's not the same. It doesn't look the same anymore either, and that's like within like 6 months.
Right.
So that's what I do with a lot, you know, a lot of like you can see in the other picture that I had sent with the the one with the general store in front of it. That one, the same kind of thing. I looked at it and thought about, you know, the before and after. Like I have photos of this from the 70s, and like this building and the things in the background, they look completely different now too. There's no gas pump. There's, you know, they've cleaned it up, fixed it up and everything. But I just happened to have a lot of photos from, like when I was in art school, I went around the area and took a lot of black and white photos of things that I found interesting at the time. And what happens is you know, this is like 30 years later, and they don't, you know, they're not there anymore. And I'm really intrigued with that I like to go back at these pictures and use what it used to look like, you know. And
so Leslie, tell us a little bit more about this particular picture. Who is this creature, this anthropomorphized creature in the foreground here? That's a story, isn't it?
Well, you know, he's this is kind of a statement, like what I was talking about. He's if you can see, he has a camera, and he's got his guitar and his old camera, and he's leaving, and he's supposed to be he's also kind of upset that the area is like it's losing its wildlife. He's leaving, you know, that's kind of the idea with him. And I was very much I guess when I was back in art school, I was trained as an illustrator, and there were illustrators that I liked very much. One of them was Murray Tinkleman. I don't know if anybody knows who that was, but he used to do a lot of, he would do the same thing, like machines and animals like morph together and, you know, make a statement that way. And that's how I was inspired by them. And that's why I do that a lot in some of my artwork, where I'll try and mix it up, you know, that it's not just a photo of this particular scene. You know, I want to tell a story of some kind, you know.
So Leslie, there's a lot of detail here. How much time does something like this take you? Because I think I mean, if I look at the detail in the bricks and the shrubbery behind, you know, even the gas pump itself, there's so much detail going on.
You know, for me, it doesn't take that long, but maybe it's like that's why I'm not real prolific. It takes I work on things for a while. But I don't find it to be you know, tedious or time consuming. It goes when I sit down to work, it goes fairly quickly for me. And I think having the reference material, like the photos, but working from photos makes it easier. I mean, it's not like I have to you know, quick hurry up and get this done, you know, because I'm sitting in front of a scene or something. I can take it home, and at my leisure, I can put my you know, put my images together and decide how I want to do them. And the technique is I like pencil better than, you know, like black and white, you know, the ink, the black and white ink I don't particularly like. I like the pencil because I can get a range of like the grayscales, you know, I can get a good range from light to dark and everything.
Values, like Marianne was talking
Right.
about. Yeah.
and in between, everything in between. Whereas like maybe with pen and ink, I couldn't do that. At least I
High
couldn't.
contrast.
Some people,
Yeah.
but-
More high contrast. Okay, and the next one is this is from a series of pictures you had of old buildings, but I think you're also interested in animals, and I think here again the detail and texture between the horns and the fur on the face and the rock in the background. Just an extraordinary piece, Leslie.
Yeah, that's what I love. That's what actually inspired me to do that. I saw, this wonderful picture of a ram, and I had just gotten back from vacation out west, where there were a lot of these kinds of, I don't know what they are, some kind of rams that are up on the mountains around there, and so that inspired me to come home, and I saw this beautiful picture of and I wanted to bring out all the the only thing in my picture was the animal, and I wanted to bring out the contrast, because like you say, the horn, whatever that horn is, and the fur. I mean, there's so much you can do with the texture. It's just really fun to bring all those different things out. That's what I consider a lot of fun.
And I think we have one more from your commercial commercial art career, which is computer. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, now these are and this is another reason why I love doing the pencil and the black and white. I spent a lot of time in commercial art and art departments, because I have a master's in education technology, and that's why I was doing, for educational purposes, I was doing a lot of 3D illustration, and I'm it's just another it's another tool for creating art. But I went back, I wanted to do the pencil because I was tired of working on the computer screen, and there's such a big difference between working on the computer screen all day to create art and actually doing a pencil drawing or a painting. It's just such a different feel. It's a different kind of feeling, and that's why. Yep.
Sorry, please go ahead.
Okay, that's why I sent these two, just to contrast, the pencil drawings from the commercial art, just to talk about, the difference in feeling of when you're creating this stuff and looking at a computer screen all day to do it. I mean, even though, it's a wonderful tool.
That goes great back to Mary Ann's point about what we were talking about with the doing what you love versus what you're required to do with these wonderful skills that you all have. We'll take a quick question. Actually, we're going a little bit long. I know we've got a question for you, but I think we'll take that in the third segment when we open it up for a free-for-all. Thanks, Jim, for your patience. We'll be right back with you. I'm going to bring Tricia into the conversation. Thanks very much, Leslie. And we'll be back. We'll rejoin you shortly. Okay, Tricia Zimic. Let's take a look at her piece. She won for sculpture. And Jen, can we see her artwork? And there we go, Diligence. And do we have you with us, Tricia?
I hope so.
Okay, there we go. This is an extraordinary piece, Tricia. It's made with porcelain. It's intriguing instantly with the title Diligence and Kintsugi. Tell us, first of all, what is the story of what's happening here?
So this little monkey is repairing porcelain plates and sculptures that have been broken, and he's doing it in a very poetic method called Kintsugi. So it's bound first with something that would adhere it. And I used a 2-part epoxy. In the old days, it was a resin made from trees. And what happened is afterwards, it's gold leafed. So that's what he's doing. And the reason why I chose him to do gold leaf was because it really takes a lot of diligence and patience to do such a thing. And I just thought he was intriguing. The hat was totally fantasy, that I just was very interested in the cutouts. And in the back of him, in the last image there, he is also mended. So not only is he mending, but he's also mended with the Kintsugi method.
The Kintsugi is a type of endeavor that requires a lot of diligence. And you have a whole series that are featuring this baboon, Sins and Virtue. You've been quite prolific on this series, Tricia, so we'll go through them fairly quickly. But there's another Diligence, which is an amazing piece, the way the porcelain, this hard porcelain substance is draping and scattered all around this amazing creature.
I love doing that. It was, again, I just like the cutout. There's a lady who actually does these cutouts with paper, and she makes costumes, and I was intrigued by what she had done. And also, like, the idea of diligence, again, I wanted to think about what that meant. And I thought of a little kid with scissors, and how they love to just sit there and lose themselves, very much the way a lot of artists do when they're working, and everything disappears and all they're doing is cutting or painting or sculpting. And he's in that mindset. But it's also kind of a diligence that he stayed with it and made all these little cutouts, and he's wearing some, and and he's cutting more out, and who knows where it goes from there. This one was sold, and so Diligence Kintsugi was the replacement for the series to keep as a set.
Okay, well, while Jen brings up the next one, let's take a question for you, Tricia. Emily Zacharias, what is the scale of your pieces? How big are these?
They're less than 20 inches. So they are anywhere between 9 inches to 20 inches high. And they really range in size. This is a 2-piece sculpture. And so it's a lot longer. It's probably, it says right there, 18 inches. So there is a measurement down there. Yeah, so they do range in size.
So Tricia, I've been looking at these, studying these, and I'm not always sure I see how the patience, how is patience here? I mean, I think it takes patience from your part, absolutely.
Well, actually, if you saw the back of his headdress, this man, and it's true, it's funny because I create these things and I'm not sure if everyone really gets what I'm doing, but I'm having a hell of a good time doing it.
Good for you.
So this guy is decorating the back of his headdress, and there's all these flowers. And if you were to see the back of it, he's got a ton of flowers on it, like orchids and different feathers and stuff like that. So this guy is his hairdresser. He also is kind of like a warrior. So it might be a little confusing. I think he's got a saber. So I was like, when I do these fanciful sculptures, I don't limit myself in anything other than I'm trying to focus to some extent on the idea of that particular sin or virtue. But then it just goes out the window. I'm like, okay, what is patience? Well, this guy's sitting back and the other guy is working on him, but everything is like thrown out the window. It's like, well, what's he doing? Well, it doesn't matter. He's like all dressed up and all kinds of wacky outfits. And I just enjoy making those figures. This one here, Chastity. So it's real. I had to put the mirror in because you have to see what's going on with her in the front. She's throwing her undergarments over her shoulder. One of them is on the lute, and the other one is over her head. And she's very seductive. And the guy is kind of like, he was just playing his lute all by himself, having a good day. And all of a sudden he's, you know, he's trying to contain himself. And this ruckus woman is there and trying to seduce him.
Tricia, why the baboon as we move forward? Yeah, why are we seeing the baboon here?
Because when I went to, first of all, I love animals, anything other than, I mean, I like doing humans, but I really find I can get away with a lot more with using animals in many different ways. So the reason why I chose baboons and continued this series is when I went to Mice in Germany, there is the monkey orchestra that a man had made, Kenderer, I think his name is. He made a series of these monkeys in a giant orchestra, and it became world famous. And this was the beginning of porcelain, being like everyone wanted it, everyone had to have it. And so when I went there, I just like was so enamored of what I saw, and was so excited I could find something finally to tell my stories. And when I went to Italy, I realized what the story was going to be about, and it was going to be about the sins and virtues, because it was 14 pieces. And I just love that idea. This is liberality. The one before that was abstinence. It takes a little, doesn't really take that much explaining, really. I mean, he's sitting there. If you saw the back of him, he's wearing a backpack with vegetables in it. Right. And in the one I did modify it, he's sitting on a skateboard in the one that I modified. And then there's all these delicacies around that he wanted to eat. This one, liberality, is he's opening up a fish's stomach, and flying fish are coming out, and he's feeding the herons and the kingfishers. So
they're marvelously fantastical. We'll have to find a way to share more of all three of your works with the audience. And maybe we can do more of that at the end. I do, before we go, and I just want to make a note that you've done some of these works as paintings. You've done some of these subjects as paintings as well. But I would like to look at, Jen, if we can, Tricia's piece that's in the frame section of the 90-second art show, which is Avian Embrace. You know, very different, but you can tell if you think about it that it's from the same artist. Tell us about what's happening here, Tricia. There's such a sweet, sort of far away and sad look on her expression as all of these gorgeous birds seem to comfort her.
It was that, exactly. It was a comfort painting for me. It was the middle of the winter, and I was just feeling like I wanted to feel embraced by animals in a way that you really can't really do in reality that I know of. But I just wanted to have that feeling of that hug, that virtual hug from an animal that you can get, that you can only get it from animals, that, you know, unconditional love. And she's just like a bird whisperer, if you will. And she's just getting that hug, and maybe she's sad, but she's also like, you know, getting that hug that she wanted. And this was, I did this in the winter, and I just was feeling like during the pandemic, I guess everyone wanted a virtual hug. And this is what I felt. I want to actually paint this painting to make me feel good. And I think maybe other people might feel the same way. I don't know.
Well, I think you did reach some other people because you won this award, and I think it's sold. Some of the all of your works have sold. Let's bring the other two artists back and open up the discussion to everyone. Please join us with your questions. We'll take a few, and then we'll move on to some general topics. Jen, help me out with the Q&A, please.
Jim Feld asked this first of Leslie, but I think it probably applies to all three of you. When drawing detail, or maybe in the case of Tricia with the sculpting, do you find yourself getting into a meditative state? Do the hours float away?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say so.
yeah, it's, yeah, you know, if I put some music on and just going, you know, with the pencil, it's like, that's what I was saying before, that I don't know how much time I spend on it, because I'm enjoying it. You know, I could stay there all day and do it, at least for me.
Mary Ann, Tricia?
I would definitely concur with that. As I was saying earlier with the Diligent piece, that with the little monkey cutting away, how you just kind of lose yourself. And people ask like, oh my God, so detailed. Like, it's not a burden, it's a pleasure to do that. And I think we all three of us really enjoy doing the detail work. And it's just, it's like an art wormhole that we go into, and we're just so happy to be there. And whether you have music or book on tape or nothing at all, it's such an enjoyable thing to feel. And the only thing you have to be careful about is that you sort of almost need to, like, I mean, in the back of my mind, I kind of know what time it is by the daylight, but you can really sink in and, you know, kind of lose yourself. And having young children or puppies, it can be a problem. So you want to make sure you know what, you know, when you go down, that you have a certain amount of time. Usually my stomach tells me when I have to stop.
Set a timer. What about you, Mary Ann? You were saying that, I mean, it did take a lot of patience to do the detail of those, the textures in those textiles. Do you find it meditative or frustrating? Is it something that you get over or you get through?
I wouldn't say it's meditative. That implies a certain trance-like state. And no, I'm focused, very focused, and trying to get it right. And I would break it down, like I would do part of it, I wouldn't try to do, I had to be broken down into parts, because it was very time consuming. To get each fold of the towel was a long time.
Right.
But very definitely you lose track of time when you're working, you just keep going.
So I'm wondering if, I mean, I'm fascinated that all three of you, the Patrons Award winners, are, you know, your work is very exacting, and all the mediums you're working in are very challenging. Is it, to work in that style, does it require a certain personality to begin with? Or, like, I wonder, somebody like me, I'm very impatient and don't have a good attention span. Is that, do you learn that, or do you start with it?
You start with it. I think it has to do with the kind of person you are. It borders on being compulsive, but we don't want to say that. But there's a certain part of that that's part of it. Yes, to do it right, to do it perfect. Yeah.
I think if you love it, if you love what you do, it's easy, not easy, but it's something that you want to learn, and that you eventually learn your trade.
Sure, but you work in different styles, maybe based on who you are and what you like. So, I mean, there are painters who work in different styles. Leslie, you jump in here.
Yeah, I remember, I wanted to say, I can remember when I was in art school and we had drawing classes and they were 6 hours long. And I remember when I was a freshman and I first took these classes, I could barely sit there for, you know, an hour, a half hour. But as it almost was like you build up, I don't know if it was a learned thing, but eventually I was able to, you know, stay for 3-4 hours. And I know in the beginning I did not feel like that. And so I'm thinking that, you know, maybe somehow, you know, once you start, you have to get used to that, because, and especially if you're going to go into a field of commercial art or something where you're working, and like I said, like I was, where you're sitting in front of a computer screen all day and you're doing art all day, like 8 hours, you know, it's 8 hours. I remember that. I don't know if anybody else had to start out like that. If you ever had a drawing classes that were, 6 hours long, and
Like getting your calluses, Leslie, is what you're saying. Yeah. Jen, I think we've got some questions. Let's get those in, because this is going so quickly with three very different, very talented artists. We want to hear what you all have to say. Let's get the questions in too.
Sorry, I thought my unmute. I didn't think I was muted. Chris Becker wanted to know, to all three artists, who is your favorite artist within your preferred medium and why?
Mary Ann, do you want to start in with that?
Yes, Degas. Not the ballerinas, but the pictures he did of people in places. Compositions were incredible. He was the most incredible draftsman. He could draw. He's definitely, he made me look at things differently. While I was teaching him, I learned to see differently. Yes, that's mine.
Wonderful. Tricia?
Well, there's so many that I was influenced on from early on, like Maurice Sendak, to get the humor, to Crystal Mori, who is a sculptor who I really admire, a contemporary of mine, Darla Jackson, who I think is amazing. And then painters, it's just John Singer Sargent, very different than me, but really a hero to me. I mean, I just love the way he paints. Many of my people who I love art-wise are very different than me, but I kind of like, I admire them, and I just like seek them. I like people that are different so I can learn from them.
I just want to point out that Darla Jackson was, of course, one of our jurors this year, and she does also beautiful work with gorgeous animals, interesting animals in them as well. Leslie, who was your inspiration?
I really love like N.C. Wyatt, like the old illustrators from the golden age of illustration. He was he did the pirates and all the in the oil. I just love all of those kinds of illustrations, and also like Maurice Sendak, like they're illustrators that I really loved. And Murray Tinkelman, he was also, like I'd mentioned, he does the morphing of the animals and in black and white kind of thing. So I'm inspired by some of the illustrators that I've studied.
And just a quick follow-up, Jen, we have Darlene had a question when Leslie was talking. Let's get that answered for her.
Sure, there seems to be a definite theme here. Darlene asked specifically, Leslie, what are the sizes of your drawings?
Let me see. Usually they're about, let me see, about by 20 by 16 or something. So something about that. They're not real small. Does that make sense? 20 by 20 by 16 or so, something like that.
That's great. And I think we've got another question, Jen, am I right here for Tricia, maybe?
Yes. Regina wanted to know, Tricia, what challenges or opportunities do you experience when transitioning from sculpture to painting?
I really love the transition, and it sort of starts up in me with an idea that I have that wants to go further in one direction or the other. So I recently I had a party in my house with a fire dancer, believe it or not. And she came to the house and she was amazing. And she was playing with fire, and I'm like, I gotta do a painting of that. So I was inspired by that. So it's inspiration, and it's well, where I can't do it dimensionally, 3-dimensionally, I'll go to 2-dimension, I feel very comfortable, as Leslie is, with illustration. I was an illustrator for many, many years. And so to go from one to the other, it's sort of like something that comes from within. It's like, I must switch. And it is changing the whole studio around quite a bit. I mean, I got to drag out my easel, or I got to like drag out my paints and my clay. And depending on how I want to create is what I end up doing, and whether I want to work with my hands or, to mold something or to make it two-dimensional, because
Thank you,
go
Tricia.
further when it's 3D.
Yeah, great. And so I have to point out, I mean, I think it's obvious if you think about it. All three of you are women. I'm not sure, Jen might know better than I do, if we've ever had three women win the top 3 patrons awards. Do you know, Jen? I don't know how far back we have that data.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can definitely look that up.
Well, I think anyway, it's probably not well precedented. And I'm wondering if the fact that there are 3 women who were chosen and all the jurying is blind, nobody knows, the jurors don't know who did which piece. Do you think that's, or is that a sign of a changing art world? Or do we care about that issue anymore? What do you all think who are out there working as artists? Mary Ann?
I don't know. It seemed that the jurors this time were looking at things that were much more representational, realistic, if you want to use that word, although it's not an accurate term. But it could be that that's what people are interested in. But the jurors are all independent and they're artists themselves. So I really couldn't foretell that in any way.
Tricia, what do you think? Do you think there's a different reaction to women artists?
I think, I hope not. I hope that they see us independently as, I just want to be known as an artist. I don't want to be known as a female artist. I mean, I love the female support, and many people who buy my work are women. That's a good question. I don't know why that is, but it does seem to be that way. There might be a natural attraction to women, what I do. But also I think it's that, women now have, they're 51% of the, the economy, and they can afford to buy what they please. And if it pleases them to buy artwork, they buy it. If it makes them happy, they buy it. And why, I don't know why it just, I think that we're coming into our own, and I'm just thrilled to be on this panel and have people recognize me for my art, and not because I'm one race or one, sexual persuasion or the other, or gender. I'm just thrilled that people do recognize us all three.
I think it means something that it was blind juried. And I think it's interesting your point about who's buying, because I know with women writers, the subject matter, like Jane Austen was considered, a good writer, but she's writing about domestic issues. And so I think who's buying and what's considered an important subject is an interesting. Leslie, any thoughts about that, or not of interest to you?
I can just say that I think I don't feel I agree with it, what everyone said. I don't feel like there's any kind of discrimination at this point, but years ago I did feel it a little bit, but I feel like things have changed, and changed for the good, that I don't think there's as much, or discrimination as there were like back in the 70s or so.
Well, that's great news. I think we have one more question, Jen. And anybody else, you want to get your questions in now? What's our last question, Jen?
The last question is, our viewers love to see your studios. So Tricia, our viewer, wants to know, what is the piece behind you, which I think that's a photo of your studio, but
Yeah, it's an owl that I had done. It is now finished. It's part of a healing through Kintsugi series. So these are endangered animals, and that's an owl. So I've done several now. So I just finished the pangolins. So I did 2 pangolins. That looks like an anteater for anyone who knows them or doesn't know them. Most trafficked animal in the world. And I did leopards and owls, and we'll see what's next. Oh, the wild African dog is next.
All right, well, that's terrific. Thank you all 3 for joining us on Art Talk. Congratulations on winning the Patrons Awards this year. We love your work. And we appreciate you joining us today, Ann Bowman, Leslie Schlegel, and Tricia Zimic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And thank you to the audience for joining us. Join us on October 24th for the Viewer's Choice when we invite the artists you selected. We appreciate your many responses to our calls for feedback, and we'll announce the lineup shortly. We loved your picks, and we're looking forward to talking to these artists too. Thanks to our executive producer, Jen McHugh, as always, does a great job. Thanks, Jen.
welcome.
And thanks to our show producer, Dennis Riley, for putting together today's show. We love our team. I'm Laura Womack for Phillips Mill Art Talk. Good night.